Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another day of Bible study. Well, what a world we live in. Things are really picking up. Not in a good way, in a very kind of negative way since Saturday, all the wars going on and all the people dying. But, not much we can do about here, and I don't want to turn this into a political show. So we're just here to discuss the Word of God. Although it can be very difficult to separate yourself from what's going on around us. But I suppose, I've always been one who's had an interest in geopolitics. I remember as a young child debating with my friends. Even my father used to allow me to have discussions with him, as long as I wasn't rude. So, it's very weird what's going on in the world as we speak. Well, how can we relate this to the Bible? Well, I haven't prepared for that kind of discussion, but the Lord does tell us that there will be wars and rumors of wars. That's in that's in the Gospels. And we shouldn't be worried that the end is not nigh or the end is not at that point. Certain events have to occur before that happens. So I've just put it down to one of those things. We're always fighting wars. I think I said this on the last stream, but you can do this for yourself. I took the birth dates of all my family members, parents, children, grandchildren, and that was the years that they were born. And what did I discover? Every single one of us was born in a year where there was a war being fought somewhere in the world. And these were like mini wars, like pretty major wars. Every single person in my family was born in a year when a war was being fought somewhere in the world. I found that amazing. And I don't know what came to my mind when I just thought, let me just check this thing out. But I know there's probably was whatever was going on at the time. And I thought, let me check this out. Let me see if man has just been fighting wars. And that's what we've been doing. And what does that tell us? What does that tell us who actually rules this world? Who runs things here? What does the Bible tell us? The Bible tells us that Satan is the god of the air. He runs this place. And how do we know that? Well, just look around you. Do you see anything godly or holy happening at any point? There's always some strife. There's always something going down that is negative. Okay, and the Lord does tell us that He's coming to retake the world. And judge everybody and everything, including Satan and his demons. So that's the situation we find ourselves in, I'm afraid. And I know some of you might be affected by I'm affected by it, I have to be totally honest. And, all I can say is try in a way to console yourself. These things have happened before we were born. They will be happening while we're here on earth, and they will still be happening when we're gone. So console yourself and just move forward. And if there's anything you feel you can do, donate to some charity or whatever, then do that and pray. So, as you know, this is like a series that I'm doing. I want to read the first 5 books of the Bible, and we're on Genesis, and we're going to read chapters 30 through to 32. If you want to catch up on the previous chapters, just go to my YouTube channel. If you're watching on Twitch, you can just, my YouTube link is there, you can go and watch them there. And obviously if you're watching on YouTube, you will see them there anyway. So why don't we just step right into chapter 30 of Genesis. Right. What I've done now, I've said this the last stream, I've kind of like moved away from an overhead camera with the Bible, and I'm now gone to an on-screen version, but I'm going to vary the two. Just want to find out the one that suits me both, and I think it's always nice to shake things up a little bit. So it's a shame really, maybe I say it's a shame, I'm going to do a day where probably it won't be a specific Bible reading day, and maybe I would like to sort of look what's happening in the world today or right now at that point, previously, the last week, the last month, the last year even, and see if we can look at the Bible and see where the Bible talks about these things. Because from my recollection, the Bible talks about politicians, it talks about people who are wealthy, it talks about people who are poor, it talks about widows, it talks about fathers, it talks about pastors, reverend fathers, how to differentiate between them. It talks about everything, because I've said I use the Bible as a workbook on how to live my life. The Bible has made me aware of who I am, and it also soothes me when I'm under pressure, when I feel, well, what's going on? I just read it, and I find the right section or the right paragraph or the right phrase, but usually I just go to Psalm 91, and that just gives me solace, and that really makes me happy. So the Bible's like that. No matter how many times you read it, when you read it again, it's like you're reading something new. And even for myself this morning, I just went straight to Mark, and I was reading about when the Lord was talking about the coming of the Lord at the end of the world and the events that would lead up to it. And I didn't fully understand one section that I had read, but it became clear to me. I'll probably talk about that on a weekend stream when I'm not doing a Bible study, and I'll talk about how I was able to relate to that section of the Bible and how it really kind of like calmed me down. I thought, okay, because sometimes, when you're reading, or when I've read the Bible, I haven't fully understood the part that I was reading, and I read it again, I didn't understand it, and I read it again, I thought, okay, I have some kind of interpretation, but when I read it, I said to myself, why didn't I understand this the first time that I read it? But since the first time and now, I've had various experiences, haven't I? I've been able to see things differently. I've been able to understand things differently. I've become more aware. So when I now read it, I thought, okay, this is what I was missing. But when you're in between those things, it's always good to obey the commandments of God so that you don't make a mistake, so that you don't slip up, so that you don't expose yourself to temptation. So even though I didn't fully understand that section, because I was being focused on what I was doing, And because I remained sober, okay? I didn't veer to the left, I didn't veer to the right, I just remained sober. So I wasn't making any real mistakes that I could have made if I didn't fully understand that paragraph. And me understanding that paragraph was more related to me understanding the past and my experiences and being able to relate them to reality. Because the Lord was telling me, this is what's going to happen to you. These are the things that will happen. And those things actually happened. Those things actually happened, right? And I didn't fully understand them. So my screens just went dark. Just give me a second. Let me get my screen back, because without, there we go. So it was just this morning that I realized that, oh, I understood what had happened to me. And then I understood why it had happened to me. And the Bible said to me, Activia, these things will happen. But I had never read the Bible when these things were going through. You know, I just wasn't aware, because if I had read it, I would have known how I could have handled that situation. But even though that situation came, I wasn't deceived. You know, I wasn't fooled by what I had been presented with. You know, I still came back and made the right decision. So that's how the Lord works, especially for His chosen. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, and just to say that patience is a virtue, and it's important that one should be patient, because maybe if we knew what was going to happen in one fell swoop, it would just be too much for us to bear. You know, you just be too much. So sometimes things will come in like a drip, 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 because the Lord knows, He knows us, so He knows what we can cope with. Because if we're exposed to something all at once, it just can become too much. So when it's drip, 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 when you think about it, that's when you really understand it. That's why it's so important, so very important. And I like to say this, that you obey the Lord's commandments. Because when you obey the Lord's commandments, that's wisdom. There's no other way to be wise other than obeying the Lord's commandments. And through that you know the difference between good and evil. And that will give you knowledge. Okay? And from there the learning process continues. Okay, this term just came to me, but I'm not going to use it because it's not a term that I'm comfortable with, although I've heard people use it on television and in other things. But what I've noticed is that when something just comes to my brain like boom, that's not from me. That's not what I was thinking. That's from somebody. That's something else. And I can avoid just saying that, because I want to ensure that whatever comes from me is holy, is godly, and that I'm being guided by the Lord. It's very important, because there's I think it's in what's this book? Is it in James? I think it's in James. It says, be quick to hear, then be slow to talk and slow to anger. Okay, so I think that just, that spells it. It's that you can understand that. Quick to hear, slow to talk, and slow to anger. Don't get angry and don't be too quick to respond to what other people say. Think it through. And just ensure that whatever comes out of your mouth is pure. And if you feel there's a situation that whatever was going to come out of your mouth is not pure, keep quiet and don't say anything. swallow your pride if that's what has to take place. All right, so why don't we just start with chapter 30 of Genesis? Let me see, here we go. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my servant Bilhah. Go into her so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her." Doesn't that sound very similar to what happened between Abraham and Sarah? Because she told Abraham, "Look, I can't have kids. Why don't you take my serpent, I think it's Hagar, and have a child through her?" But she became very angry after she had her own child. Or I think even after. Yeah, because there's... she became quite angry and asked Abraham to drive Hagar and her son away. But this is happening again, so this is very interesting. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Oh wow, I shouldn't really say that actually. Then Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave Jacob to her as a wife. So I'm assuming that there was some competition there between the sisters. "Oh, so you gave your servant to Jacob? Well, I'm going to give Jacob my servant." Even though Leah, her sister, had children. Okay, so there's always little bit of competition that goes down, I suppose, in these kind of households that are polygamous. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, had 7 wives. So I wonder what was going on in that household. And about 35 kids, something like that. So yeah, they can get very interesting, but you see, human nature is human nature. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "Good fortune has come." So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "Happy am I, for women have called me happy." So she called his name Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went... Oh, I think I need to... sorry about this. I just get carried away. In the days of wheat harvest, we're on verse 14 now. Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." I actually had to look up to find out what mandrakes were. Back in those days, mandrakes were some kind of root plant, and their roots looked took the shape of a man. So that was kind of interesting. But they were also used for what I can only say magic and witchcraft. And in one sense, they were used for like a fertility ritual. So I presume, what's her name, being barren so far, that's what she wanted the mandrakes for. So Rebecca's her name, isn't it? Being barren, that's what she would want the mandrakes for. So yeah, what I'll do is once we finish reading this, I'll bring up. I should be able to do that. I've got like a capture somewhere. I'll bring up so we can look at what the mandrakes are. Chapter 16. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come into me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has endowed me with good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons." So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. If I remember, there's a few things that happened to Dinah. Interesting. Then God remembered Rachel and listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, "God has taken away my reproach." And she called his name Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son." As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages and I will give it to you." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. Now, when shall I provide for my own household also?" he said. "When shall I give you Jacob's? What shall I give you?" Jacob said. "You shall not give me anything if you will do this for me. I will again pass through your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look into my wages with you. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen." Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." But that day Laban removed the male goats. He's crafty, Laban is. That were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's stock. So Jacob was basically working for Laban, and Laban was using him as much as he could because Jacob had a lot of luck. And while Jacob was with him, Laban had prospered. But that wasn't enough for Laban. He wanted more. Okay, so I suppose in this case, human wants are kind of insatiable. And if we're not careful, we can be exploited. Okay, so I suppose it's always good to have a plan B. Okay, it's always good to have a plan B. I remember when I had to have a plan B, and if I didn't have a plan B, I would have been stranded. So I'm going to write that down and tell you that story on a separate stream. Just checking if there's anybody watching right now. Yes, there is. Well, welcome to the stream. It's so good to have you live at the moment. So this is my little welcome to you as you have joined me. It's always a pleasure for me to share the word of God, and I hope you enjoy the stream. Genesis is the foundation of the Bible, and the foundation sort of leads to the rest of the word. And it's always good to understand the foundation because it reflects what happens in the future, and it builds one up. Because if you have a solid foundation, you can literally do anything. And if we have, in my view, if we have a good foundation, a good knowledge of the first book of the Bible, it will give us a much better understanding of the world that we live in. And I've also suggested that in conjunction with reading Genesis, you should also read the book of Enoch, one of the books in the Apocrypha. It's very important, you know, that will just broaden up your mind and make you aware, because it's like an addition to Genesis. It goes deeper into the things that Genesis doesn't go so deep in. So just give it a read and, you know, enjoy it and sort of think about it and sort of relate it to present day and the experiences that you've had and the information that has come through you and what is happening right now. And things will probably start to make sense. Right, verse 37. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, so that the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks towards the striped, and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But the feebler of the flocks, he would not lay them there, so the feebler would be Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Right, wow, chapter 21. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what our father's he has gained all his wealth. And Jacob said that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to the kindred and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was. And he said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. I wonder when it says changed, was that an increase or decrease, or he didn't change them enough? But I'm assuming because he was complaining about it, Laban was cheating him out of his wages as well. So the thing about it is that it's kind of, one can kind of relate it to today, because I suppose in order to become a rich person, you need to kind of cheat people or mistreat them. I'm sure not all people that are wealthy do that, but it's a common theme. Okay? And that's what we see Laban doing here. Jacob has brought him good business. Jacob has given him grandchildren. Jacob has married his daughters, and Jacob is working for him. But Jacob is still complaining. Is complaining that, look, your father's not treating me well here, and it's just time to go. So we are told that it could be difficult for a wealthy person to go into the kingdom of the Lord. It'd be like putting a camel, or trying to put a camel through the eye of a needle. And as you can tell, if you've been watching the news recently, especially the news coming out from the United States and parts of Europe, where wealthy people have been concerned and what they've been getting up to. Okay? It's very, very important that we can relate things to the present day. Verse 8. If he said the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God had taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of God said to me in the garden, in a dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. So Laban was treating him badly. I am God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? You know, that's the kind of wife that we all pray for, isn't it? One that would support you in what you want to do, even when what you're doing is, not right with respect to her father. But they both know that Jacob is their husband, and they've essentially agreed that their father has been mistreating him. Verse 15. Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? Oh, there we go. For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel sold her father's household goods. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. Oh, I don't think we kind of covered this, but because before Jacob went to Laban, essentially he had to flee from his brother Esau, because he kind of pretended to be Esau and got the blessings of his father. Okay. And at that time, Esau, his twin brother, we're told, had 2 wives, but they were Canaanites. And then, if you remember, Abraham distinctly told Isaac, Ishmael, and all his other sons by Keturah that they and their sons after them should not marry Canaanite women. And what did Esau do? He married 2 Canaanite women. Okay? So, and then he went to go and marry one of Ishmael's daughters after Isaac fled to Laban to avoid his wrath, and essentially was going to marry his mother's kindred rather than marry one of the Canaanite ladies. But I was running because Abraham already had Esau already had 2 wives, and Abraham was not even married. So Jacob wasn't even married. So I said to myself, how old was Jacob when he fled to go to Laban's household? His mother advised him to do that. And I was very surprised to find out that Jacob was 77 years old when he left his father's house to go to his uncle's house. 77 years old. And I thought, okay, that is quite a mature age. And after the flood, when man was building the Tower of Babylon, the Lord said, restricted man's lifespan to maximum of 120 years old. I might have gotten that figure wrong, but it's around about 120 max. And I thought, oh my word, Isaac was 77 years old before he got married. And he'd been serving Laban all these years also. So he was essentially an old man. And his wives, I think Rebecca, Leah. Some texts say that they were twins, but I'm not sure about that. Leah was older. They could be twins and she's older, but Rebecca was 22 years old or 25 years old, so there was a huge age gap. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that because Jacob was patient. You know, and there's one thing that I've seen or that I've noticed throughout reading Genesis is that a lot of the men had to be patient. Because now Abraham was not patient, you know, when he was told that, you know, Israel will come from you. He heeded to his wife's advice and got Hagar pregnant. You know, so it's patience. One has to be patient. Okay, and let the Lord take control. Okay, that's just something that I noticed. Verse 21. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face towards the hill country of Gilead. When it was told to Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsmen with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? Why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm." So this is where we can tell that Laban wasn't such a cool guy with Jacob. You know, he wasn't such a cool guy with Jacob. Probably resented him. "But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.'" Okay, but he's still talking to him, and I don't think he's saying anything good. "And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my goods? My gods, rather." Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Right, this is something that I like to share. Laban's gods are described in the Apocrypha. I think it's in the book of Jubilees. It is in the book of Jubilees. Okay, and I'm paraphrasing here because it's been a while since I read it, but it's very poignant, and I think it's important that you should gain this knowledge too for yourself. Laban's God was a head of a human being. That head came from the first son, and there was something else. Okay, so what would happen, and this is the reason why Rachel took it. Laban will speak to the head, and the head will tell him what he wants to know. Okay, so the reason why Rachel took the head was because when her father returned, he would have spoken to the head, to his God, to his idol, and the head would have spoken to him and telling him, oh, Jacob has, for example, Jacob has left, he's took the kids, and this is where he's going. So that's why Laban wanted his God back, or his gods as he describes them. And I thought to myself, oh my word, yes, that's what Laban described as his God. So how do we know that that's not still happening today? Yes, a human head that speaks when it's spoken to, that's just witchcraft, that's magic, that's satanic, that's demonic, but that's what his gods were. So you know, that is interesting and scary at the same time, and I've wondered if you've ever heard stories like that, not related to Laban, but just, you know, general stories about things. Because I've heard, funny enough, similar stories about that, but you know, I was very, how can I say this? I wasn't too surprised when I read that that was a god that Laban was referring to, and I can imagine why he wanted it back. So yeah. Verse 33, oh, I keep forgetting to turn this page. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of the woman is upon me. So he searched, but he did not find the household gods. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years, oh my word, so that means Jacob is 97. No, 97. Wow. So how old is Laban? Probably 100 and something, isn't it? 108, 10? These 20 years have I been with you. Your ewes and female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the ram of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Wow, Laban was quite strict. There I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. So I would assume that wasn't fair. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for the children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant that you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Saphunda, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore he named it Galeed. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives beside my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is a witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, oh, please forgive me, this is verse 51. Then Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and the pillar which I have set before you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judged between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. That was very interesting. I mean, the foundation, Genesis, the formation of Israel, and how God chose his people that he blessed specifically. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And Jacob saw them. He said, this is God's camp. So he called the place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them thus, thus you shall say of my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. That doesn't sound very friendly. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes the one camp to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him, he took as a present for his brother Esau 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. These he handed over to his servants. Every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and put a space between the drove and the drove. He instructed the first, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third, and all who followed the droves, you shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us, for he thought I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterwards I shall see his face, perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. Well, I wonder what that meeting's going to be like. Has Esau forgiven him? Verse 22. That same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. So this to me signifies that Jacob, despite what we would consider now his advanced years, he was still very strong, he was still very fit, and he was still very resilient. And he was able to wrestle essentially with an angel all night. So that takes some provenance, that takes some confidence, that takes some faith in God. knowing that no matter what, the Lord has promised me this. I know that I can go through this trial or tribulation and come out at the other end stronger, despite the fact that I'm 97 years old. Verse 26. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Oh, so he actually was wrestling with God. Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask for my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. Oh, I wonder if there's any peoples in the world that, as a tradition, don't eat the sinew of the thigh. That would be really interesting, I think. I wonder. Probably the same thing with circumcision, isn't it? People that just traditionally circumcise. Wow, that's the end of chapters 30 to 32. Well, it does leave some quite interesting questions, because, like I said, I wonder if there's still any groups of people who don't, out of tradition, and they might have forgotten why they even do it in the first place, but it's just like traditional. Just as some people who circumcise who are not related to Israel or anything, they just do it because they do it. You know, when you ask them, "Why do you circumcise your children as a matter of course, traditionally? Why do you do it?" They say, "Well, we just do it." You know, so that's interesting. Not because of religion, but it's what we do, it's what they do. You know, so maybe it harks back to being a member of the lost tribes, who knows? Or being Hebrews themselves, who knows? You know? And I really enjoy that. I did enjoy reading that with you. And we just went over an hour there. That was really nice. It's always a joy to share the Word of God. It's always a joy for me to be part of this. It's always a joy that I'm alive and can share this Word of the Lord with you. This applause is for you. If you have any questions, if there's anything you'd like to ask me, please send me an email or leave a comment and I will respond. And if you have enjoyed the stream, if you would like to express that by becoming a follower, that would be great. I'm just trying to build up a little community here, and it'd be really nice to have you as part of that. So I'd like to wish you good night, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to the next stream, and I hope to see you there. Take care now, and good night.